What is going on, dudes? It is I, the AEW World Champion Red Baron, and today I'm gonna be reading a creepypasta. This creepypasta is from a lost episode of Blue's Clues titled No Clues. This one's from Geosha's Lost Episodes Wiki on Fandom. I will be posting a link in the description if you want to read along. But if not, sit back and enjoy the story. I remember the day like yesterday. It was a crisp autumn morning, with a lot of leaves in the air. It was November, and I was just 9 years old. I was happy. It was Saturday. My mom had to run some errands, and my dad was at work on a Saturday. I had to take care of my 1-year-old twin sisters, and so did my older sister. I was the only boy child, and I grew out of Blue's Clues when I was 4, because for some reason I thought it was too girly. It was only 2001, so I wasn't really surprised at my 15-year-old sister suggesting a Blue's Clues VHS. But there was something funny about it. Steve was saying the title of it in a depressed emotion. The top of the speech bubble was ripped off, showing a red VHS. The back and other sides were all completely white. "Mommy got this for us to watch," my older sister said. "Are you sure about this, Julie?" I said. "Don't worry. I got all of our backs if something goes wrong, Johnny," my older sister Julie said. Julie popped the VHS into the player, where the coming soon to video cassette was supposed to be. It was just a timer for when the feature presentation was about to come on. It kept shooting to static most of the time. Instead of the Paramount feature presentation that I expected on all my Rugrats VHS tapes, instead, it was just a 1955 Paramount Mountain, sitting there, motionless. Julia and I talked with each other, thinking that the VHS was just special. After about 20 seconds of waiting, a weird Nick Jr. logo came on. The Nick was just walking in a straight motion, with the Jr. hanging along. This was silent, and it went on for 10 seconds. My little twin sisters were getting tired, so we stopped the VHS and put the twins, their names are Danielle and Hannah, in their cribs. Julia and I wanted to see why this VHS was so weird. As we got back to the family room, the VCR said play in the top left corner. We didn't even touch play. Anyways, we kept watching. The Nick Jr. logo was still going, and for 20 seconds. I told Julia to eject the tape. She went to the VCR pressing the stop and eject button repeatedly. She gave up and said, "It's useless." I told her to keep watching, so we watched it together. The Blue's Clues intro started, but instead of the joyful guitar music, there was depressing piano music. Steve said, "Hi out there, it's me, Steve. Have you seen Blue, my puppy?" in a voice that sounded nothing like Steve. A shock of static jolted across the screen. Blue was in cheesy CGI instead of paper animation, and when the Blue's Clues house door opened, we saw a man that looked nothing like Steve, though he was wearing the same clothes as Steve. He looked a lot like Tom Hanks. Then, the TV bursted with static, and when the episode came back on, Steve was back to normal. Steve said, "Hi, come on in. Today we won't play Blue's Clues." The background kid said in a confused voice, "Why not?" Then the screen shot a tiny burst of static, revealing a grotesque corpse of Blue. Blue was on her neck, with her intestines tied around her. Blue's eyes were popped out of her sockets, revealing green CGI eyes. I almost threw up, but I held in my puke. Julia was not even sickened by this. That's because she has a thick stomach. They cut back to Steve. Steve was smiling very big at a rate where CGI wasn't that realistic with effects in 2001. Steve said, "You kids will learn about death." The TV turned to static for a boring 2 minutes. Julia and I talked about if this was actually made by Paramount. Julia called 911 and she told me that the line was cut. We had to watch the whole thing then. After the static ended, Steve said that he will be playing a special game, and the background kids cheered. He went to side table drawer, and side table said, Blue's Clues, I'm Soul X. A loud gunshot rang. The screen changed to black and Steve laughed in a soft voice. After the screen faded to black, we see Mr. Salt with red bloody eyes and Mrs. Pepper with white eyes and sharp teeth so realistic that it feels like you can't even touch them. Steve asked if they wanted a juice. The couple said, "Sure thing." The static once again shot across the screen. I could make out 666 in the static. Julia asked if I saw 666. Obviously, I said yes, so we snuggled up with each other, waiting for the worst to come. The episode came back on with Steve saying, "Here you go, 2 servings of yummy juice." Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper were in cheesy CGI this time. They drank Steve's juice and liked it. "Yummy, what's in this?" Mr. Salt asked. "Cyanide and poison, of course," Steve replied. "What?" Mrs. Pepper screeched. Suddenly, the two were coughing off salt and pepper out of their bottles instead of blood. Julia and I watched in horror as the 2 alive inanimate objects suffered to meet their fate. After all the shakers were dead, Steve skidooed into the picture frame and put both felt friends into a wooden boat where there was a lagoon of lava. But as the felt friends got into a boat that was on the lava, the boat burned and the felt friends burned to death, and Steve was happy, then skidooed back. Steve was satisfied at his accomplishment, so he kept going. Shovel and Pail were in the backyard, and they looked sad, and all they were doing was staring at a live-action clock that resembled tickety-tock. Shovel said in a 5-year-old boy's voice, "Poor tickety-tock." Pail said in a 5-year-old girl's voice, "I miss Periwinkle." "Periwinkle? He was on the show for only 1 year back then." Steve came and said in an old man's voice, "And you're next." "No," the Shovel and Pail said. Steve closed his eyes for 3 seconds and opened them, revealing bloodshot eyes. Shovel and Pail screamed and ran away from the so-called Steve. Steve sang "Ring Around a Rosie" in a creepy little girl's voice. He found Pail and grabbed her by the handle. Pail was blood-curdly screaming as the blood shot all over the place. Shovel started crying to his sister's death and sprinted away. Shovel started running to the front yard where he found Mailbox. Shovel told Mailbox to run, but Mailbox said he couldn't. He was stuck to the ground. The voice of Mailbox sounded a lot like Steve for some reason. Shovel whispered to himself, "I'm coming with you, Pail." Steve came and said, "Hello, little yellow shovel. Wanna play?" Shovel answered, "Okay." Steve shoved Shovel into Mailbox's mouth, with Mailbox's mouth closed around Shovel's neck, with Steve holding Mailbox's mouth closed. When the 2 died, Steve sprinted into the house, with static jolting around again for 1 minute. After the static was all gone, we saw Steve and Slippery Soap. Slippery was blindfolded. "Are you ready for your present, Slippery?" Steve asked, all fake happy. Slippery said in Periwinkle's voice, "I'm always ready." Steve counted 1, 2, 3. A knife sliced Slippery Soap in half. Steve was happy. "Satan is my king. I must kill myself to make him happy," he said. Suddenly, the screen turned black, and a rope sound came out of the blue. Then it cut to Steve hanging from a noose, and it later faded to black. The Nickelodeon logo came on, and it was shaped like a knife. On the handle, there was a small label with the number 666 on it, and it also was a text saying, "To Turno." Julia told me it was a Morse code for "your turn," and there were no credits. The screen blasted with static and the power went out. I will never forget that day. I remember it was November 17th, 2001. That was the day our family changed. I got paranoia and had to see a therapist. Nobody except my family believes what I saw. Julia has a condition where she doesn't sleep a lot, and her husband is always trying to calm her down to make her sleep. Danielle or Hannah are now very crude and they like gore. They are mean to certain people. My mom is always depressed and hates her job, and she wants to be at home and cry all day. And my dad got into a car crash on his way to work. He is now in a wheelchair and cannot walk. I wish this never happened. The VHS got smashed to bits by Julia. That Blue's Clues VHS is why my family is like this, and at least it's gone for now. I call that VHS Blue's Clues, No Clues. It's my nightmare, and at least I'm alive. For now. That was Blue's Clues, No Clues. If you want to read this creepypasta yourself, I will be posting a link to it in the description down below. Anyways, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. And also comment down below which other creepypastas you want me to read next. Anyway, I'm gonna get going. I'm about to go to sleep. This is the AEW World Champion signing off. Peace.